Great, thanks, mate. Sorry I'm late.
No problem, mate.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. Thanks for inviting me in. As Nathan said, I'm from iConstruct. I'm the product manager for Asia Pacific. Been working with iConstruct for a few months now. I actually come from BHP, so I actually come from the client side, so I can understand how this can be related, not only from a demo sense, like most product guys, but actually from a client sense. So it's a very powerful tool. iConstruct, just to give you some idea, iConstruct has been around for about 17 years. It came from a company, or was born, if you want to say, call it in a company called PDC, which was a Perth drafting company back then. They developed it for their in-house shop detailing model management, and then it sort of just grew from there. These days, just to give you an idea from commercials, these days iConstruct is a separate company to PDC, so there's no conflict of interest. So what I might do, look, sometimes it's a little bit hard to explain iConstruct. But what I might do is just put this slide up. Oops, sorry. Let me know if you can't see it. It's a good way, I guess, of giving an understanding of what iConstruct is. So as many of you are aware now, I assume as part of your course, iConstruct is an add-on package to Navisworks. I'm no doubt you guys understand the value and the power of Navisworks and the ability to bring in those 3D intelligent model files and then do your coordinations, your clash detections, and really your BIM management in Navisworks. It's such a powerful tool. The problem is, though, it doesn't allow you to manage or manipulate the metadata and the geometry once it's in Navisworks. So the simplest term we can call Navisworks a 3D PDF in some essence. The beauty of iConstruct, it now allows you to manage, manipulate the metadata and the geometry to really leverage the power of that BIM model and not necessarily have to rely on that native file each time you want to make a change from a metadata perspective. That's really the power of iConstruct. So iConstruct, the way we present it is in many different tool suites. The first one is our model foundation tool, and I'll run through these tools. So I'll just give you an overview, then I'll run through a demonstration of how to use them. If there's any questions, feel free to jump in and ask. The first tool suite or package of tools we have is the foundation tools. That's really about structuring your data, so your geometry and your metadata, so it's going to be successful through the 3D model lifecycle. Once we bring in a native file, it may not necessarily be structured from a tree perspective or from even a geometry perspective as to how you want to manage that data for the project, or doesn't necessarily meet the client specifications. The beauty of Reconstruct is it allows you to regroup your models, so export out a new NWD file based on either the geometry that you select or an attribute within the properties. So you can say, and I'll show you an example in a minute, but you can say, okay, we've got this air conditioning system here, right? We've brought in this whole Revit file, but we only want to export out a new NWD file of just this air conditioning system. We can group that by the system name, and no doubt the attribute, that system name has come across from Revit. You can now export that out purely based on the attribute, not necessarily going through and selecting all the different items within that system. So it's a powerful tool to recreate or restructure your data and also tidy up your project data so your tree is structured so you can now do your clash tests and run your clash manager. Integrator, another fantastic tool that allows you to create a user data tab within Navisworks and consolidate your metadata into one usable tab. Once again, project specific. Append data, so it allows you to bring data in from an external database. I'll show you that. Model audits, zone tools, all very good tools. So once you've structured and set up your NWDs, you can now actually leverage the data in a BIM sense. That's where we've brought in our project solutions, and these have really been client driven. So clients have come to us and said, Carl, we really need these tools to manage our data and actually present back to our clients, our stakeholders in our business. And that's where really these tools came from. Clash Manager, probably our biggest selling tool within the commercial construction market. And really that's taking the Clash Detective tool within Navisworks and supercharging it in some respect. So giving you the ability to filter your clashes, manage your clashes, remove really noise that's generated through the Navisworks Clash Detective tool, and then ultimately push that data out from a clash view report perspective. Other tool, color coding, model compare. From an oil and gas perspective, advanced work packaging and inspection manager are the two big ones. I won't go into detail there, but they're big sellers for us. Revit data switchback, another powerful tool potentially in your space where you have the ability to add an attribute within Navisworks to the NWD file and then push that metadata or that attribute back to your Revit native file. So you don't necessarily have to go to your Revit file each time to add a new attribute. You can do it in Nav easily using our data linker or a pen data tool and then push that data back to Revit so the native and the NWD match. Right, system integration, I won't go into detail there. Forge, I won't go into detail there. Probably the last one that I will explain is interoperability. So our ability to export out those NWD files to either an IFC or a DWG. There's other versions there as well. It really allows the end user to create an editable file from an NWD file. As we know, NWDs are non-editable within Nav. It's not a CAD package. In many instances, especially for our bigger clients, they get vendor models in that are just NWDs with metadata. The IFC exporter now allows you to export that data out and bring it into your CAD packages. And really the tool that brings it all together is our BIM Flow tool. BIM Flow, I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's a scripting or an automating tool. So you can really script any process or task within Navisworks or iConstruct through this. It allows you to process large batches of models really in the click of a button. Our clients love it because it saves them a massive amount of labor in having somebody sitting there and press next, next, next. The BIM Flow tool now allows you to script the task and then run it, and then that's it, done. I'll touch on that today, but I won't go into too much detail because that's more of a coding in some respect thing. By no means you have to be a coder. I'm not a coder, but it does help to have some sort of logic behind it to understand the guts of it, I guess. So any questions in regards to that overview? No? Okay. Right, so what I'll do now is I'll go into Navisworks. So as you can see, iConstruct sits on the left-hand side of the panel here. I'll just run through some of the tools, and if anyone's got any more questions or would like to go into any more detail with anything, let me know and I'll run through it in more detail. First thing I'll do is show you our Clash Manager tool. So to use our Clash Manager tool, we obviously need to run a Clash Detective test. Apologies for the resolution. Everything's massive. So let's say we run a test within Navisworks. We come up with 432 clashes. So we've run a test between our structural and HVAC models. So these are consultant models we've brought in, and we're now doing our BIM management or our BIM coordination. And a large component of that is really coordinating services or from consultants that are not necessarily from the same teams. Navisworks does a good clash test, but that's about where it stops. We now can push that data in from Navisworks into our Clash Manager tool. So in standard tools, we have Clash Manager. Whoa. Right, and we can push that data in from Navisworks. So we're pushing the clash test from Nav into iConstruct. Right, it's a bit slow. Right, so what we've done now is, if you can see here, I might just drop that out. Right, so we've pushed in our 432 clashes. Apologies. We've pushed in our 432 clashes into iConstruct. What we can now do is go to our options and have a look at really how we could potentially manage or group those clashes, right? So there are many options we can use, and it can be project specific, client specific. For example, we can hide unselected. So what that means is that when you select a clash within the Clash Manager, it hides everything except just the two objects that are clashing. Good presentation tool, especially when you're reporting out. Another one you can use is the proximity group field tolerance. This is probably one of our biggest sellers as well. So what this allows you to do is say any clash of the same system within a distance of each other will only be considered as one clash. So a good example of that is, say you've got a duct and the insulation for that duct going through a beam, right? Navisworks will potentially pick that up as 4 clashes or best case 2 clashes, right? realistically that's one clash, and that's creating noise to your statistics that you don't need to actually worry about. What this does, let's say your installation is 100 mil, you can now say, I want to allow, let's say 250 mil, just for argument's sake, 250 mil. So any duplicate clash or clash of the same system to the same clashing system within 250 mil is considered one clash, right? So it's a way we can all of a sudden remove potentially half of our clashes by doing this, right? And that's just one example. You know, there are many examples that are client and project specific where this can become useful. Another tool that we can use is our clash icons. Now, what our clash icons are, they're clash spheres. When we create a clash sphere for a clash, right, it creates a bubble where that clash is. We can then export that file out and bring that back into our native software, and you can do your coordination back in your native software by that bubble, because it obviously retains the XYZ coordinates of it and any metadata associated. So it's another way of pushing data back from Navisworks into your native software. Right, another one in the data tab could be skip duplicate clashes. Believe it or not, it's very handy. If you've got overlaying geometry, all of a sudden it removes that and you've only got the one clash there. Another way of filtering through your clashes. There are many other tools and options there you can use. Once again, they're client and project specific, and it's really all been developed from that. Right, so nothing looks different at the moment. If we go to our column chooser, what the column chooser is it allows us to now filter our clashes based on any attribute within the Navisworks model. So in this instance, it's a multi-level hospital, so I'll group by, what was that one? By level, grid level, for example. I'll group by system name, right? And most importantly, I'll group by proximity group, right? So now what we've done, if we have a look, and I apologize for the resolution. What we've done is we've grouped our clashes based on those filters that we've put in. So now all of a sudden, we don't have all these hundreds of, potentially in a real project, 20,000 clashes that we now need to go through, each single, each one by each one. We can now filter them and go through them as a group. So all of a sudden we've gone from, and I'll push it back. So once we've done, now what we can do, once we've filtered our clashes, we can push that back to our clash detective, so which was where we run our clash test, right? So when we push that data back, right, so yep, it's just saying that the data will be refreshed within Navisworks, right? I'll just put that down to the side for now because I want to come back to it. We go to our clash detective and we can see now we only have 25 clashes, right? So we've gone from 432 or whatever it was clashes to 25 clashes. This is because we've been able to filter and group clashes together, which we've identified as the same clash, right? So they may be within 250 mil of each other, of the same system clashing with another system. That's one clash. So it allows the BIM manager and the BIM coordinator to really concentrate on the areas that he needs to coordinate and not necessarily everything that's going to waste him time. So it's a way of gaining efficiency within your process. Right, so that's our clash manager. Now let's go back to our clash manager. What I'll do, I'll just do a small component of it. Right, so let's just click on this clash here. All right, as you can see, when we click on it, it identifies and highlights the two objects that are clashing. We can then right click on that and go clash icons, draw clash spheres. All right, I'll just remove that for a second. So what we've done here is we've now drawn a sphere where that clash is. So it's now all of a sudden created a new object, and that object has XYZ coordinates. We can now export that XYZ coordinate out as an IFC into your native file, and then do your coordination back in there. It's a better way of working than doing it in your nav model. Right. Another example of how we can use our clash manager is by creating views and then exporting out a view report based on that clash. In a real project, once you start with your 20,000, you go down to your 5,000, you can then export out the 5,000 views and then distribute them to the contractors or the consultants who are actually doing that. So if I right click and create clash views, if we then go to our save viewpoints, we have a new folder that's been created there called Clash Views with the specific clash that we've spat out of iConstruct Clash Manager into Navisworks viewpoints, save viewpoints, right? So all of a sudden we've gone from this data that we've brought into Navisworks, we've filtered it, we've grouped it, we've allowed ourselves an efficient way of managing it, and then we've spat that out as a view. We take that one step further and then export that data out as a view report. Now, what we've done here, I've actually brought in all the views, and it will. So once you've run the Clash, once you've created the Clash viewpoints, they'll all push to the Clash view report or view export or whatever you call it. So all you need to do there is just select the Clash that you want to report on or create a report on, and then run. This is fully configurable, so however you want to present this, you can do. In this instance, what it does is it creates a plan elevation and a detail view of that Clash, and also any attributes that you would like to select to bring across into the report. Right. Whatever's within that Clash view. No. So it depends how you filtered it as well. Yeah. Definitely. Yep. But that's the BIM coordinator's role, is to filter through those clashes. Yeah. So that's So you can filter. Yep. So you can filter your clashes by system or by object or really any attribute, and that could be an example. Yeah. It's really driven by the client and the project as to what they want to see. Yeah. So yeah, that's our, and it's probably not, oh no, there we go. And look, I've set that as view transparent, but I've also set it as from a distance. And this is fully configurable. If we go back and go to our Clash view report, in our run designer, sorry, I need to select the Clash first. We'll just go back to that. Right, this is where you set up your, so what it'll generate the views again. This is where you can configure your report to however you would like to see it, or how you'd like to present it. Give it some time. It's a very, very easy system to use. As I said, I'm by no means an IT man, but I can use it, right. So this is the template or the report designer that we have built in, and you can add your own logos. You can add really anything you would like, views, whatever. This is where you do it. Right. Best thing to do is just to play around with it and get an understanding of how it works. It's like any other, I guess, Microsoft application in that respect. Right, so that's our Clash manager, and really what it is, as I said, it's an extension of the Clash Detective within Navisworks, and it gives you the ability to now easily report out any clashes that you brought in. Okay, the next one I'll go through is our Data Linker tool. So Data Linker gives you the ability to append new attributes to any object within Navisworks. Right. So in this instance, I'll isolate the lighting fixtures. So just hide unselected, right? And I've just isolated all the lighting fixtures. Where this becomes powerful is really in a costing element. So when we talk about 5D, one of those Ds is definitely cost, and our quantity surveyors are definitely starting to go into this space and use this tool a lot more. So the designers may have created the model, but now the quantity surveyor needs to apply cost and then calculate the cost associated with that item. Right. This is where the data links and the export data can be used. If I just select, all right, first object. All right, I'll run you after this. I'll run you through Reconstruct as well, because that's the important thing. Right. So this is the user editable data tab that we've created as part of Navisworks, the model. And let's say we want to apply a cost, as I said before. We use the data linker tool. I'll run you through the configuration of this in a second. But what this does, it picks up either a unique identifier or really any attribute, and then adds an additional property to the bottom of that user data tab. I'll just show you the, not that one, apologies. Right, and I'll show you how it's set up, because it's important to understand that. Very basic though. Right, so we have a database. In this instance, it's an Excel spreadsheet. Can be really any type of database. Spreadsheets are obviously the easiest ones we work with. Right, and if we just put this aside here. Oops, sorry. Right. So on the right-hand side, we've got our attributes, properties. On the left-hand side, we've got our database. So the linking attribute in this instance is the name, so the element name. So really, as long as we can either use a unique identifier like the ID on top, or an equipment tag, or a supplier, or whatever. As long as we've got a unique identifier that we want to use as our linking attribute to apply additional data. This is the way we really have the ability to create additional metadata within Navisworks and not necessarily having to go back to the Revit file or the native file each time. This is probably one of our more powerful tools. So that's our data linker. And if you've got any questions, feel free to jump in and ask. I know I run through it a bit quick. So, right, so once you've applied data, let's say you want to export. Oh, I was going to run through the configuration quickly. Right. Right. So this is the data linker configuration. Right, so you can see here that we've brought in the database, which is on the right-hand side here, which is the MS Excel file. And now we've mapped it to the Navisworks file. So here we've identified our linking attribute, which is the element name and the name, and that's what I was showing you before. And that's really as easy as it is. You know, once you identify that linking attribute, all you need to do is then apply the data. It's a very easy tool to use. If you've got any more questions in regards to that, let me know. Right, export data. So once you've brought data in, let's say you want to export data out. If we go to our sets and then go to, let's say, architectural doors. Right, so let's say we want to create a door schedule. Right, and you don't want to necessarily go back to your native file, nor do you want to sit there and manually count them and apply the data and whatever else. You can now do this really at the click of a button. So if I run our door schedule tool or export data tool, what this does is it takes whatever attributes you would like to spit out and actually exports it into either an Excel spreadsheet or within our report builder. Same report builder that you saw the view report in. So for that level, what we've done just at the click of the button is created a door schedule. So just to give you an idea of, I guess, of the configuration, and I'm happy to share this model and this profile also with the class if you would like to play around with it yourself. The best way of learning how to use it and understanding the value in it is obviously by doing it yourself. Yeah. Right, what was I going to show you? The export data. Right, so all we're really doing is saying, okay, we want to export out the name. That's actually it. All we want to do is export out the name. And once we export out the name, we can present that in the report. So we've got family, level, name, yeah. So they're the different attributes. Right. I'll show you reconstruct now because that's an important part of understanding how to use.
Yes, hello.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just wanted to ask about the door schedule.
Yep.
Like Revit, there's no option to have drawings of the doors like a traditional door and window schedule. It's all just data. There's no drawings associated with the schedule.
So can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. So do you mean as in creating a drawing from the geometry within the model?
Yes. So all these options to create a schedule.
Yes.
From what I can see, Revit doesn't do a drawing of a schedule either. It just gives the data.
Yeah, that's
Is
probably,
that just an auto?
sorry. That's more of, I guess, a Revit thing than a iConstruct won't create drawings of models within Navisworks. Is that what you mean, or?
Yeah, no, I just wonder, because the traditional opening schedule that you would give to a supplier has the drawings,
Yeah.
of the little doors and windows, but I don't see that as a format that's being used at the moment.
Okay.
In BIM schedules that are being generated. Is that just a general, the way it's going now?
Yeah, to be honest with you, many clients are not expecting, and even the consultant in some respect is not delivering drawings as part of their package. It's more a database and a model. Yeah. So moving forward, I highly doubt any clients will be requesting drawings, especially door schedule drawings, as a deliverable. I just can't imagine it anymore.
But does that go through to, say, the carpenter? Are they happy with just the data and not a drawing?
That's probably a question for the carpenter. He's probably not, to be honest.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. It seems to me that that schedule with the row of doors and windows is so much more clear.
Look, you'll have a standard, obviously. You'll have a standard drawing sheet that will always be part of the project. And hopefully your door schedule just references the standards, I guess. And that's where the tradesman would work off. Yeah.
Yeah. No, just wondered. Thank you.
No, that's right. No worries. Okay. I'll show you the Reconstruct tool now. I'll just load this back in. What Reconstruct is, as I said, I touched on it before, it gives you the ability to create or generate a new NWD file from whatever data you've brought into Navisworks. So this could either be consolidating models, so bringing in two models and creating one, or splitting up models. So taking a larger model like this. So this is your air conditioning HVAC model, right? And let's say we want to just create an NWD file of just what I've selected there. If I go to Reconstruct, right, what it does is it creates a new NWD file, right? I'll just save, it'll prompt me, that's cool. It creates a new NWD file, and I'll show you the configuration in a second. In this instance, it's based on the system name, right? So the system name was supply air 1234 or whatever it was, and that's how it's grouped it. Even though I've selected it, it's still grouped it by the system name, right? So it's prompt me. So what I'll do now is I'll drag and drop that in. Right, so now we have a new NWD file of just the geometry that I selected, right? So it's a way, as I said, of splitting up models, consolidating models, restructuring your model, really anything, gives you the power to really do anything. Right, so the next thing we want to do, for example, is create a user data tab, an important thing in Navisworks is understanding the editable data tab, right? A lot of instances when you bring in a model into Navisworks, none of your tabs are editable, right? The integrator tool allows you to create quickly and efficiently an editable data tab. That's really the power of it. So we use our integrator tool and say HVAC, for example. Right, so what we've done there is we've created a new usable data tab and pushed up the data from item level up to assembly level. So we've selected just the attributes that we want to at item level that are applicable to the group or the assembly, and then pushed it up. So I'll show you the two configurations of that now, because those two tools are really the foundation for any model within Navisworks that we find anyway. So Reconstruct, and it's very basic. Right, so this is the reconstruct configuration. As you can see there, we're grouping by property or by name, and that's in this instance by system name, right? And that's about as easy as it is. When you yes. Oh, yes. Yep. I'll show that now. So yeah, sorry, Nathan. As you said, the first thing you need to do when setting up a new configuration or a new tool is get the Navisworks NWD props. What this does is it pushes the data from Navisworks into iConstruct, right? And they're now your attributes that you can play with. It should be it's the first thing you need to do when you run any configuration within iConstruct. Right, and there's a heap of different options and tools and ways you can define it and name it and whatever else. It's all, as I said, it's just been driven by the client over the last 16 years. The other thing about Reconstruct, you've got three options. So you can either export all, export just selected, or export except hidden. Right. So the three options, I guess, when you run your Reconstruct tool of how you select the geometry that you want to export and create a new NWD file. Right. Just to show you the integrator configuration. Right. It's HVAC, which is a nice one. Same thing again. Now this is a little bit more complex, but it's once you get your head around how it works, it's very easy. So what we're saying here is we want to push the data at item level, right, to a new user data tab called iConstruct Hospital, right. So this is where we put our new model tab, right, and we want it uniform, right. So many clients have their name, like say for example BHP, they will have their name as the user data tab. It's easily identifiable, and they usually know what it means. So that's the first step, and then going through and selecting the element or the properties in which you want to push to that tab. Right. This is a way you can consolidate those thousands of tabs you bring in from the native file into one tab. Yeah. So item to item. So from your native file, you're very rarely going to push data across at assembly level, metadata across at assembly level. So you need to use the integrator tool to create metadata at assembly or group level.
So integrator effectively reconstructs as well as
Well, Reconstruct does the geometry,
yep,
and your tree to an extent. Yep. Integrator does your metadata.
One thing I can't get
yeah.
with this is I understand the item data mapping.
Yep, cool.
Group data mapping.
So we're pushing that up. We're pushing that up from item level.
Okay.
So traditionally, when we bring in a native file, all the data is held, especially in IFC, all the data is held at item level. In fact, I can't think of any native file that comes in that maintains the group metadata. So, especially in shop detailing with Tekla and ProSteel and whatever, when you bring in that native file, you've pretty much got layer, which is everything, and then all the associated parts. You want to create your welded assemblies, so that's how you use your Reconstruct tool, and then the metadata associated with that welded assembly. Yeah. Yep. Right. So, as I said, we can go into more detail, but I know that we're a little bit pushed for time. Okay, so that's our Reconstruct and integrated tools. So as I said, they're really the foundations of setting up new models or structuring your models within Navisworks. Right, I'll show you some cool functions now that normally people appreciate. Right. Oh, sorry, I'll go back to that. Apologies. Right, another thing I will show you is our audit. So iConstruct audit. So what the audit does, and I'll just show you, go to the configuration, so audit configuration. Right, so let's go system name, load. And as Nathan said, it's so important to, every time you look to create a new tool or a new task within iConstruct, get Navisworks props. I haven't selected anything there, but that's the first thing you need to do every time. That pushes that metadata in that you can use. Right, so system name. So this is very basic, right? All we're doing is creating a view. Where's our views? Generate viewpoint, right? You can see that here. And we can also select generate selection sets. And we can do that by grouping it by an attribute, right? So this is a good way of auditing data that's come in, right? In this instance, we're grouping by element, system name, right? So if I save that, and all that, yeah, close that out. So say for example, I want to select just this, whatever, doesn't really matter, and then run our audit. As I said, so it's creating views and selection sets based off an attribute. In this instance, it's the system name. This is the way you can visually go through an audit. So save viewpoints once again, and it's created a viewpoint of all the systems in isolation. Right. It's also created selection sets. So if we just unhide all, no, not at this stage. Right, and you can see now in the whole model, I've created selection sets. Right. The beauty of this, now we can actually export out a view report. So because we've created our saved viewpoints, right, we can now use our standard tools and our create view report. Exactly the same as Clash View Report. We've just named it differently because we didn't want to lose the fact that we had the Clash View Report as well. Right. And once again, it's pushed that viewpoint data across from Navisworks into iConstruct. And same thing, we have the designer, and you can just create. I actually don't even know what these are going to look like, to be honest. Soon find out. It'll look very similar to the other one, yeah. So plan elevation, and then a detail, and then you can even spit out an MTO of that system as well. Good way of reporting, presenting, clients, management internally, whatever. Okay. I can give them to. It's fine. Yeah. Look, the thing about iConstruct is the tools need to be specifically built to that data set. So when it comes out of the box, you have standard tools, general configuration. This is where you build your tool suite. Saying that though, we can give you like this profile, for example, if you like the way these are all set up, and then you just tweak the configuration to the data set you've got. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. Our idea is for you to get the most out of the system. Yeah. And we'll train and guide you on how to do it. Yeah. Right. How are we going for time, Nathan? Okay. As I said, there's about 40 to. I don't want to go through all of them because I'll bore the hell out of everyone, so I don't want to do that. I'll show you a couple of things within this model again, and then I'll show you the BIM flow quickly. Just, I guess, give you an appreciation of what we've got here. Right, so another good way is actually linking a database and actually presenting it from a color perspective. This is good for material tracking. So I come from steel detailing, and we use this in the steel detailing work packaging space. So we link a database. So in this, it's just an Excel spreadsheet to the model. And once again, it's so important to have that unique identifier, right? That comes from restructuring your data, right? I can't preach that enough, to be honest. And now we have a live visual tool that we can use to track our steelwork or whatever. Shipped, yeah. So, but you can code that, or you can really do anything you want in that tool.
You're saying there's some interoperability between iConstruct and Trivadero, so they say that
Yeah.
try and link that code into color coding.
Yes. Yeah. There's a little bit to it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But that's what we've done a number of times. I did that in BHP all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. We linked our shutdown schedules to the models and then visualized our shutdowns based on the Gantt charts. Yeah. And did our resource tracking and everything else. Yeah. So you can see here that this is where we put our display attributes and our colors, and then we link our database to it. So I'll just show you the database. Right. And it's very easy, very basic. So number one thing we have on the left-hand side here is our element ID, which is our unique identifier. It's king really in this world. And then we have not fabricated, and this is really where iConstruct picks up what color it wants to present it as. So we go down, we can see that this changes as we go down. And Navisworks picks up, okay, there's no mark or there's no object within this cell, display it as this, right? And that's really how that works. There are other ways to do it, but that's the most common way of doing it. All right. Okay, that's color coding.
Could I just ask, Carl, this spreadsheet you just showed, that's something that has to be manually updated by somebody, I presume?
Normally you'd spit that out of a work management system. So, you know, like a SAP or a Maximo or something, they follow the work packs using a mark number, and that's where you spit that data out.
Right.
Yeah.
But at some point in this process, there's somebody entering data, you know, whatever level, to get that tracking.
Oh, ideally not. Oh well, yes. Well, the contractor would be managing their work packs and reporting back to the first tier owner to manage that. Yeah. So, but that's not at BIM data level. The BIM manager, all he's doing is pushing data in, pulling data out, and presenting it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay, I'll show you the tools, the BIM flow quickly. I don't want to drag on too long. Right. So as I said, BIM flow is really one of the more impressive tools. It allows you to automate and script any tool. Is that coming up? Right. Yes. So this stands outside of Navisworks, and the way. Oh, sorry. Right. The way it works, there is a little bit to it. I probably can't really go through the whole detail in 5 minutes, but I'll see how we go. The way it works, you create a new job, right? And you give it a name and a description. You don't even have to give it a description, just give it a name, for example. Right, so let's just call this test 1. Right, so this could be create federated model, right? So bring in all your native files, create a new NWF, export out NWD, and then do your clash test, report out. You know, you could automate and script all these transactional tasks that you do on a weekly basis as you being a BIM coordinator. You can now script it. So really, you sit there, go home at night, have a beer, and don't even worry about it. And this will automate it. So when you come in the morning, it's there ready to go. So you can report back to the client. Right, you then right-click on it and say Design Workflow. That should. Right. Okay. Right. This is our workflow manager. Very basic coding. There's really not a lot to it. On the left-hand side here, you've got the iConstruct tools, and as we go down further, you've got the Navisworks tools. Right. So the way BIMflow works is you pretty much need to start and stop Navisworks, right? So you need to tell Navisworks to start. So you start Navisworks. It's a very easy tool. And that's really where you can now launch into your iConstruct. So say, for example, you want to append a model, right? You can now append that model. The way you tell BIMflow where to get that model from is actually from over here. So the model file name. What you would do if you had multiple models that you wanted to process or group into one NWF, you can do that by just pathing that to the folder. So by pathing it to the folder, it will pick up all the models within that folder, push them all in. Yeah. So yeah, easy way of opening many models at once. You can then run through all our different tools as well. So you can run a clash test, for example. So clash test, which was the Navisworks clash test, right? And then you can go and use our clash manager tool. And so yeah, and the most important thing is obviously setting up that profile. So once you've set up that profile within iConstruct, it then reads that profile and the configuration of those tools within Navisworks. So that's what you're doing here. So you're saying, okay, I want to run the Clash Manager test or Clash test or append model or whatever based on the instance that you had open last within Navisworks. Yeah, the iConstruct profile. Right.
In terms of the pen model, can you tell us what file location where it's saved? Like it might be
Yes.
October 1st.
So that over here, you've got model file name.
Oh, yes, so you just browse for it.
Yeah, but as I said before, you would in most instances you'd want to process a large number of models, so you just path to the folder. Yep, and it'll do it one by one. It just transactionally works through the process. And yeah, that's how you do it. Yeah, yeah. So once you've put in all your different tools, you then need to stop Navisworks. Right, you stop Navisworks. Where'd that go? All right. Yeah, spot on. So it may sound like a very basic task, open, save, close, but it's a very time-consuming task within Navisworks, especially from the native file. The ability to script this, automate this, is going to save you a day. So, for example, the Perth Children's Hospital, PDC, with the BIM managers there, they had 5 BIM managers. They went down to 2 once they brought in BIMflow. Yeah. It's a way of creating efficiencies in how you're working, and delivering more to the client. Yeah. Okay, that's about it. So, any questions? Happy? Not happy? I don't know. Happy? Cool. See value in it, I guess. Yeah. So I don't know whether you've got time now to incorporate into your project, but look, at the end of the day, I'll give Nathan's got my details. So if anyone would like to get in contact with me regarding further training or some, trial license or whatever else, welcome to, and I'm happy to sort of help out wherever I can.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, ideally we don't like offering trial licenses to Gmails and Yahoo Mails and whatever. Normally the company we like to supply to. But as your students, then it's not. We don't have an issue with it. Yeah, yeah. Oh, there you go, done. Yeah, yeah. So hopefully when you start becoming BIM managers and BIM coordinators, or you might be now already, I'm not sure. You could potentially look at how you could incorporate iConstruct. There's the sales pitch, I guess. Incorporate iConstruct into your day-to-day life. So, yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Carlos. Is there any questions coming from just before you go? Yeah, there's no questions in the comments, so thanks very much. If you guys can just hang around, I'm just going to go through assignment 2 for BIM Manager with you before you all take off. Thank you. I think the tools that you went through are the most applicable to what
From it sounds like you're working in commercial construction space, so yeah, that is Flash Manager, Reconstruct, Integrator, Color Coding, working data, exporting data out. That's really what you consider making for this. Let's see.
Thanks, mate. And I might email you tomorrow and just ask for those templates. So send those through to the students, because if they want to do their class reports, this is a template. I think that took a bit of time to set up originally.